Who are you and where are you from?
My name is Mitch Lee. I'm a historical interpreter reenactor of the American Revolution. I live in Williamson, New York, just a little bit east of Rochester in Apple Country.
What's your story?
Well, I began this journey of living history and as an early lad, being fond of historical literature and journals, and eventually found my way into the hobby reenacting the American Revolution. I started my own unit as a very young man, the 3rd New York DeWitt's Company, and they were a company of soldiers during the 77 campaign that were garrisoning at Fort Stanwix in Rome, New York, which at that time was called Fort Schuyler. And we would go into the fort and we would interpret that, and we eventually transitioned that unit into a unit that would travel and meet with other units, both British and American, to reenact battles of the American Revolution. It's grown. I've been doing it for a very long time, since the bicentennial until now, and I've been to about 27 states, 2 foreign countries doing this, and it's a passion and a lifestyle. About 1 or 2 weekends a month, we reenact. We get together as a group and meet up at a historical location, set up our tents and our baggage, and sleep and eat and participate in a world from 245 to 48 years ago.
What's your fondest memory at a reenactment?
I have many fond memories. Each and every time we go and visit a historic site or a place where we set up our tents and gather our family of historical interpreters, there's always something to bring away, whether it's a question from the public that's unique, or history about the site that we discover while we're there, or the merriment that we have as a group of people discussing historical journals of the past, and the cultural items themselves, the ephemera that were used by the soldiers, from the most mundane things like how to create char cloth to why certain flints work better for our muskets. I think my greatest joy and fondness for it all is just that in the moment sometimes you get caught up inside your head saying, my gosh, I'm feeling the moment of all the things I've read in the journal. I think there's an excitement when you say, gosh, I've tapped into something as close to as possible what they must have felt at that moment in time, more than 200 years ago. And it does raise the whisker hairs a bit sometimes when it flutters in, but that's not why I do it. Those are magical moments, and they're great. But I enjoy every moment that I'm out with other living historians on these historic sites. It's fantastic.
Who do you portray and why?
So our current living history group portrays Willets Levies. Willets Levies were a paid unit in New York State, a named regiment to the Continental establishment in the late war period to protect the Mohawk, Schoharie, and Cherry Valleys. They were centered out of Fort Plain, New York, which was a very large fortification that the Northern Department troops helped to build. I portray just a private soldier. Over the years, I've portrayed soldiers from the New York line, from various numbered regiments, and I have to say that portraying men from the New York line is very important to me. I've researched their backstories and their names and where they came from and what they did. I feel a kinsmanship to them because I've read their pension papers and I know where they ended up after the war, and I feel a closer bond by reading their journals and reading from the orderly books their experiences, and knowing them by name from the specific companies that they do. I have portrayed singular private soldiers from the 3rd New York, the 2nd New York, the 1st New York, and now Willets Levies over the years, and you come to know them in a more personal way by imagining who and what they were at the time, and then trying to relive the footsteps that they walked in by going to those places that they had slept in and marched to and fought in.
So how do I reenact?
So, living history, experimental archaeology, the lifestyle, reenacting, by its many names, is something that anyone can do at any level. My suggestion is wherever you are, find a unit on the British side or the American side that is close to you. By searching the internet, you can very quickly probably find units that are within an hour or two of where you live. Find them on the internet, or they sometimes have a callback number. Contact that unit. Find them at an event. Normally units have an event calendar. Meet up with that group and find out if they have similar, a spirit that you may have, or passions that you may have. You might want to do a British impression, a light infantry impression, a horse impression, artillery impression, and so that may guide you. You may want to experience the American Revolution as a loyalist, as a continental, as a militia, as a British grenadier, and so you'll follow that into a unit. That unit will help you build your kit, your clothing, the accoutrements that you would need, your pack. They all have a separate but similar way to create their material culture so that it's specific to that unit. Every unit in the American Army and the British Army dressed very differently, so you need to have a way to find out what that was and attempt to recreate it, and it's always easier to do that with a guiding hand who's been there before.
And the last question, who do you have with you?
This is my son, Jackson, and Jackson is a seasoned reenactor. This is his third season at 5 years old, and he portrays a camp follower in the American Revolution. The wives and children of the soldiers were allowed to follow along with the Army, and they got a portion of the pay and the rations that the soldiers did to be there in support of the Army. It helped Washington to keep his army together. There are many great books. One great book is, Camp Followers of the Army. It is not just a soldier's experience. We allow women to portray soldiers as well if they wish to, but they can portray women who followed the Army, the wives of those soldiers. There are many things that we do that allows for a family experience in camp. It makes it a lot easier for the gentlemen who like to do this if their families are allowed to be in and be a part of the experience. And the children and the wives sleep with us in the tents and eat the food that we eat and experience the same lifestyle that we do. It encourages an educational experience for the children, and it's also a great way to see certain parts of the country and experience history firsthand. Say hello, Jackson.